Okay, so I guess we can just start. So, hello everyone. Today I'm going to present one of my papers, Linguistic Narcissism, Partial Discrimination, and the Lived Experiences of Non-Hindi Speakers in Delhi. So, talking about this paper, though, we started writing this paper, in a very abrupt manner, the topic somehow became one of the favorite topics that I have ever worked with because like I shifted to Delhi, like India's capital, at the age of 17 for my higher studies. Like I was born and brought up in the southern part of Kerala, like in a small village, and the transition was actually very challenging. Like from a small village to a national capital. And one of the key challenges I faced during this journey was actually the language barrier because my mother tongue was in Malayalam and I knew English, but somehow at like, right after my 12th, I was not really in a state to speak it out in a way I wanted. Like I was never ready to express myself. But yeah, so language barrier was one of the key challenges that I faced during my initial years in Delhi. So this paper also, coming from the experiences, the very experiences I and my co-author have faced after coming to Delhi. And I'm sure, like, if you are someone who has migrated to Delhi with very, not Delhi particularly, but migrated to some, like as like migrated as someone who is a linguistic minority, I guess maybe you can relate to this as well. So without any further delay, I guess let's move on to the next slide. So basically, when we think about language, language is symbol as like a system of like communication, a tool we use to communication. It has words, sentences, grammars, and yeah, but when it comes to multilingual societies like India, where there are almost 1,000 language, even multiple languages in one state, one district. So in multilingual societies or multilingual countries like India, language is not only, a tool to contact or communicate to each other, but rather it often functions as a powerful symbol of like identity, belonging, and social hierarchy. And in some places, some language, dominates and other becomes inferior to others. So the people who actually communicates in a dominant language become sort of superior to other people. Of course, it is connected with other aspects of the social structure as well, like class, wealth, education, and all. But still, language is one of the key tools to showcase symbol of identity, belonging, and social hierarchy. So the lens we are using here is collective narcissism. Is a group's exaggerated belief in its own greatness and hypersensitivity to threats. We might all be familiar with the term narcissism and narcissistic disorder, narcissistic personality, and all. And yeah, and then collective narcissism, and then linguistic narcissism. So, linguistic narcissism is basically the belief that one's language is the most authentic, superior, or legitimate expression of national identity. So, when it comes to India, like, different nationalist like perspectives or yeah, perspectives have been trying to bring Hindi as the natural language of India, or like if you speak Hindi, then you're sort of automatically becoming Indian. And if you do not know Hindi, then you're somewhere you came from outside and all. So the existing literature in the field of language and in India have analyzed policy like language-based policies and identity politics using language and all. Like, but it has not really covered or it has not really reached to how language functions within an individual, or how does a person lived experiences when they are, in a position of linguistic minority. So that's what we try to cover in. And we had major four objectives to understand the lived experiences. You can read it in here, and my paper has been already shared. Like you can go through that one. So, first of all, to explore the lived experiences, and then to examine perceptions and manifestation of linguistic narcissism and language discrimination in everyday interaction. and to understand, how non-Hindi speakers negotiate linguistic identity and belonging, and to explore the emotional impact of language-based exclusion and the copying strategies adopted by non-Hindi speakers. And we also had like four research questions based on the objectives we have. So we adopted a qualitative method, obviously, to understand lived experiences or to understand a person's, like close emotional well-being and all. I feel like, it's better to use qualitative because you will get more in-depth answers rather than when you use quantitative. And we've, formed like we used a semi-structured interview with a duration of around 45 to 70 minutes. And then data analysis was used through reflective thematic analysis. And the sampling techniques were like purposive and novel. We purposefully selected non-Hindi speakers who are matching our non-inclusion criteria. And then we use those particular participants to get people from their states, so that we can use these other people as well, like similar people to, to do our interviewing. So, and the interview questions were open-ended and we had 10 participants. So I guess when it comes to qualitative study, it's not really a limitation, but when we consider the diversity of Delhi, it is, I guess 10 participants might be a bit, low, and it can be considered as a limitation of the study. And we had people from Kerala, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Jammu Kashmir. That is also, we had people from this northeast part in India and the southern parts of India and the middle part. But we lacked the participants from the northeast part, like Manipur, Assam, and how they have navigated, how they are currently navigating along. So yeah, it can be considered as an ongoing project. Like we can work on it and bring in more participants. And the age range was 18 to 35, and the gender ratio is balanced. Five female participants were there and five male participants. And as I already mentioned, there were both northern and southern linguistic minorities. And we had three primary inclusion criteria. One was they primarily spoke a non-Hindi mother tongue. Like it can be any other language, but their primarily mother tongue or the language of communication should not be Hindi. And they had resided in Delhi for more like almost for a year because we wanted to know the coping strategy as well. It's not about the experience, but how they have coped as well. So yeah, they had to live in Delhi for at least 1 year. And we want also like I guess we also had questions related to like how has the experience has changed after you started speaking Hindi or like after learning Hindi even in a small way and reported intermediate comprehension of Hindi but limited fluency or confidence in speaking it. So this was the three inclusion criteria we had and the data analysis had 6 phases according to the reflexive thematic analysis framework and the results, we received five core themes. I guess it's more, like mentioned in my paper. Well, it's just small pointers that I have used. So the first theme is actually linguistic identity as core selfhood. So as I already mentioned in the introduction, in multilingual societies, language is not only a, mode of communication uh, you know, it's a part of your identity, the language you're speaking in. So, like one of the participants had quoted, like speaking in English or Hindi is like borrowing someone else's game. So it's not, it's using, it's if you're speaking some other language, it's like you are using someone else's thing. Like, it's not really yours. So language was very, core self, like part of a core selfhood, and it has highly influential in their identity part. And then navigating a Hindi majoritarian order. Uh, like as I already mentioned, Hindi is often considered as the natural language of India and the like institutional invisibility. Like many participants had already had quoted the same thing. The professors or government officers like switching to Hindi, even when they are aware that these students or these working people can't understand it. Like whatever instruction I am telling them in Hindi, like they won't be getting it. So it will create a sort of inequality between other Hindi speakers and non-Hindi speakers. Though it is quite understandable in government officials or like I mean say the locals or when you go to a local shop and you can't really expect the shopkeeper to speak in English because they barely had access to education or they barely know English. But at the same time, professors who has who have PhDs, postdocs, and all other qualifications, essentially have written many papers in English and very fluent in English, but they still chose to speak in Hindi because they were telling that there are students in this class who could not understand English well. So the people who are not Hindi speakers were left out. And yeah, it's really a matter of discussion as well. Like when you switch to completely English, there might be students who are coming from, who had never access to that much of English. They will also feel left out. So I guess that can be considered. But still, the non-Hindi speakers were actually left out. And one of the key factors was that when you say that you do not know Hindi, people who think that Hindi is a national language or natural language of India, they will be amazed and it will be considered a sort of an arrogance. Like, you don't know Hindi, like you're still from India, and these questions, like that mocking non-Hindi speakers, or considering as a sign of incompetence is commonly seen as well. And then the emotional toll, like when you are mocked in public, when your queries are not being validated or considered, you will definitely feel a sort of inferiority complex. And participants have also mentioned experiencing imposter syndrome. I personally have experienced syndrome for almost 1 year in my class because though I knew English, I was trying my skills in speaking. I never had the courage to speak up because I never felt like I belonged there. So, so when you feel like you are an outsider or you do not know the very common language that other people are speaking in, so basically it affects your psychological well-being. And then, knowing English is actually a good thing, like a good quality that can, overcome this. But then a different hierarchy pops up, like educated speakers and not like if you have a good British or American accent that you can speak fluently, then you are considered okay and you are an educated fellow. And if you are coming with a broken English with poor, what do you say, Indian accent, you're still considered as outsider. And yeah, and the experience of minority stress as well affects confidence and belonging. And then theme four, coping, resistance, and community. So actually, almost all the students group have their own native groups in Delhi, like in especially in universities, it's very common. So these regional networks and student association often provides a sense of comfort and validation because everyone speaks in their language, their mother tongue in there, and people how participants had mentioned that over the 1 year or 2 year duration they were in, they try to learn Hindi, but not to assimilate, but to gain confidence, to regain the confidence they have lost, and to utilize the spaces they were in, whether it's workspace or whether they're universities and all. And yeah, and the fifth theme is actually, reimagining inclusion and justice. It's not that people has no idea that non-Hindi speakers are, non-Hindi speakers exist in India, but it's just, okay, it's fine. Like, it's like a lack of respect, we can say. It's not just lack of awareness. And multilingual, like in cities like it's like sort of a call to action theme that in cities like in Delhi or Mumbai, where people across India are coming for work or for education, linguistic coexistence and the availability of translators and representation should be added to like increase the inclusion. Yeah, so that's what the five themes we have received. And then the discussion part as well. It's like linguistic narcissism is an effective reality felt through shame, fatigue, and resistance. And like Hindi symbolic dominance operates as a form of collective linguistic, entitlement. Like, where fluency in Hindi becomes an unspoken criteria for belonging in public institutions or in universities or workspaces, when you know Hindi, okay, you belong. And it's not a written rule, it's like a norm. It's not written anywhere, but it's there. Like, if you do not know Hindi, if you can't speak in a way that other almost all the people speak, then you are considered as outsider. And then Hindi dominance functions as a symbolic violence, like where hierarchies are internalized and self-doubt and silence. Because people do not explicitly sometimes speak that, okay, I know Hindi, so I'm superior, you are inferior. But it's there in the conversation, it's there in the air. So people who do not know Hindi like almost feel inferior, and people who know feel superior. And multilingual should be viewed as a site of empowerment. Like when, like as a child, or like when we were in schools, we grew up listening to the diversity of India, how diverse India is. Unlike other countries, we had different languages, culture, and everything. So this should be, like viewed as a site of empowerment, like encouraging kids to learn multiple languages, even in Hindi, and considering each language as equal. Like everyone is using for communication. It's not like when you communicate in this particular language, you are something, you are superior, or when you are speaking another language, you are inferior. So teaching kids or even adults and conducting sensitization programs about multilingualism should be one thing. And then linguistic narcissism in Delhi is both structural and universal. Like one of the questions that we can ask is, won't it be very subjective? Like it might be only happening in one university, it's only happening to one person, but the same incident is happen if it is happening in different people in different parts of Delhi. I mean, we can consider it as a pattern. We asked more than 10 people, and we only interviewed 10 people, but we asked more than 10 people and we received positive response. That's why we decided to go on with the study. So if it was an individual phenomenon, I don't think it would have been like repeating again and again. So it's definitely a pattern. And as we are living in a democratic, especially like democratic country, inclusivity is an like ethical and emotional imperative for a healthy democracy. And awareness is also already there, but the lack of respect is, it's there. So we should do something, or we should introduce policies in considering all of it. And yeah, so that's all from my side. If you have any queries, please ask. Oh, okay.
Wow. I really, really love your presentation. I really admire your presentation. Wow. I feel so connected as well. Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Mhm.
I am going to read the paper, definitely. I think you're so correct when it's not just Hindi, but it also like when you it's not like let's say English or Hindi, Indian, these two dominant languages, not particularly like we read in school, like, but it's not something we speak a lot. It's not native language, right? For example, mine is
Mhm.
Odia. My native language is Odia. So for me, when I moved to Bangalore, I felt the basic belongingness is so difficult because you don't understand the cultural difference. That can be good further
Mhm.
exploration, right? Having a like striking up a short conversation, being like, "How are you?" It doesn't necessarily mean they're
Mhm.
asking you like in depth, "Oh, I'm actually not doing good today. I'm doing like that," but like, "Oh, you are doing good." So it's like it becomes a norm for me to speak, like, "Oh, I'm actually doing good." It's so similar, and with the jokes and understanding, it gets difficult to
Yeah.
doing that. Yeah, I absolutely agree with the work, and such an important work to do, given the current scenario.
Mhm.
Definitely. Oh, it's great. I am going to read your paper then. I'm not read fully, but I'm going to read it fully.
Yeah. Mm.
Shambhavi, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I mean, discrimination is one of my interests, and it's a very interesting paper at that. Um, a very basic question I had in my mind, did you consider maybe a quantitative analysis to maybe see how your sample would resemble or speak for the population? Because, see, with quant, it was a very small sample. I was wondering why you did not think about quant.
First thing that we needed in-depth, answers in quantitative. When you use scales and all, it's, maybe a similar pattern is gonna show up, but the experience is like the why might be very limited. Like, do you feel discriminated. Yes, I feel discriminated. Like on a scale of 5, you can rate it. But I don't I don't know. Like I personally felt like if you want to experience the real thing, or it's in-depth interviews, like in-depth experiences of how people are experiencing discrimination and how they are navigating through it and what are the coping challenges and like the what we can do for this. So I guess qualitative would be a better, like, of course, for to establish a pattern or something, we'll be needing more participants. But I guess with like in-depth analysis, we went for an in-depth analysis, so that's why we prefer
Oh,
qualitative on the.
perfect, perfect. I had another question in my mind. It was, yeah, I want to know, like, again, this is a very grave topic and very relevant if you consider our country's situation with respect to linguistic narcissism. It's not just with respect to Hindi. If we try generalizing it to maybe Maharashtra or South India, similar problems are faced by people where sometimes people are forced to know Marathi, etc., etc., etc. So,
Yeah.
I was wondering what implications and future directions with respect to those implications would you suggest so as to tackle the discrimination that is faced by linguistic minorities?
So the future directions of the study, like that's what you would. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
implications as in what interventions you would suggest
uh-huh.
along with like the
Okay.
future.
So, in cities or institutions with people from different language communities, translators, availability of translators, or maybe using English, like if it's a like a high profile like work setting, using one common language to to speak and to do communication and all. So it can be like implemented strictly, and then different languages in or like signages in different languages and availability of translators in government institutions or in banks and those kinds of institutions. So yeah, like having translators and all, and then sign in different languages, and then like also intervention like session like sensitization session about the it's not that people does not know, people know, so creating like including sessions like in universities as well, giving training for professors and in workplaces through the like perspective of HR. People can come and then like, maybe teach other language as well. For example, if there are a few Marathis in a Hindi dominated like a workspace, the HR can do some fun activities to sensitize with the language of Marathi, and yeah, so in a fun way as well, people can do sensitization session.
Right. Okay, I had two more questions, like follow-up
Yeah, sure.
questions. One was your suggestion of translators. Don't you think hiring a translator per person would be too expensive? And B, it was systematically the implication of English language makes sense, which I don't know if it's fair to think that it would somehow lead to domination of the English language. But then again, we
Yeah.
are kind of that's a very colonialistic argument. Um, but what would you say we could do on a societal level? Like, for example, I don't know if you have seen that particular video wherein a woman was forcing a man to speak in English at the airport, I think. No, wait, speak in
Mm,
Marathi at the airport.
okay. I haven't seen. Okay, so hiring a translator by literally I like didn't mean a proper translator, but if you know, if I am a Maharashtrian person coming to Delhi and then I'm joining a firm or somewhere, uh, like not really a translator, but someone who is there from Maharashtra, being there for me to get in familiar, like, and it might not be possible every time, but still, instead of a translator, we can also consider people with in different cultures, like in MNCs, it's possible. And yeah, like, and in coping mechanism also they have mentioned having strong like regional networks. So maybe like connecting it with people of, I mean, it's definitely not a responsibility of the firm itself, like, or the company, but still, having people of different, like, same locality or people with same language will help the people to relieve, like, and to, cope with this discrimination, I guess.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Makes sense. Thank you.
Mm.
I have one question. It's more 9 minutes left, so it's I have one just small question. What if do you think we can reduce discrimination if we find similarities between language? I know we can find similarities between culture,
Yeah.
but what about languages? Do you think it may reduce discrimination or it can enhance well-being, a bit of belongingness? What do you think? Will it ever
Okay, so
happen?
I guess the similarities between Urdu and Hindi has, largely a influence, because when I was talking to the person from Jammu and Kashmir, that he knew like Urdu a little bit, and it has helped me to cope with this Hindi stress a lot. Because when you speak Hindi and Urdu, like, like somehow it's similar, not in the terms of like writing and all, but it actually helps people to understand better and to speak, even if it's not grammatically correct all the time. Still, it makes the other person understand what this person is saying. So I guess it will definitely help to reduce the discrimination. I mean, like, taking an example from my study.
Yeah, thank you. I have one more question before we end. So, like, what do you think if you had chance to like enhance the study, or maybe like if you want to do it again, so what changes you could have made? Do you think you would prefer mixed method? What would do?
I'm not sure about mixed method because I do not have like that much of an idea. But I think one I would do, increase the number of participants, and I'll make sure to keep the geographical balance, like northeast, south, and like make sure almost all the states, and then people of different ages as well. Like we chose people of 18 to 35, and it might not be similar for older people, like how they are, navigating. Because in university students, like they have these regional groups everywhere, but for older adults, it might be difficult. So how do they, like the people of like different ages, and the coping strategies or experiences of people of different age groups as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for answering. Do anyone have any other questions? Shambhavi, anyone else? No questions?
No, no, I'm done.
Okay. So I'm ending it. I'm ending the um meeting. Yeah, thank you for joining. And Naza, thank you, like giving a great presentation. So it is nice. Yeah. Bye. Bye.